Hi, James. Lovely to speak to you today. I've got my cup of tea ready because I'm taking a cup of my own medicine. When I wrote on my private Instagram account this morning that we should share cups of tea or even coffee with people, maybe that we don't see an awful lot. And obviously, since we've been working remotely, we haven't seen a lot of one another, nor actually anybody else within our agency. So it's all been a bit sort of lots of Zoom calls and lots of Microsoft Team calls. So as I say, I've got my cup of tea. Have you got a cup of tea with you at the moment?
I have. Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
Jolly good. Well, as we know, we woke up to Blue Monday this morning, and
yeah, we did.
It's a bit of a worry, really, how quickly January's flying by. But obviously, Blue Monday, it's generally the third Monday in January, the time when the festive period, Christmas, New Year, that's all gone by. I mean, it has been like no other, I think, in 2020, and I'm sure a lot of us will remember it for very different reasons. I suppose a lot of us are thinking about our annual tax returns. We may be hoping to plan a holiday soon, but I did notice this morning that Rishi Sunak was suggesting we don't plan any holidays. I think we need as human beings to plan something. But anyway, over our cup of tea, shall we just see what other things that we should be thinking about? You know, how do we keep ourselves sane, actually, I suppose. I know we've been doing quite a lot of things with the team over the last, 9 months probably. So, you know, what have you found from those meetings with everybody, James?
Yeah, I mean, I think normally in a January, people do look to book holidays and plan ahead, and that gets them a little bit more motivated and through January. But this year, obviously, people don't necessarily have that to look forward to. So throughout the different lockdowns that we've had, I mean, as an industry, we've been fortunate where we've been able to remain open. So people have been able to keep a bit more for routine, but it's been very challenging, as you say, because there has been colleagues working at home and some in the office, and a lot of it has been on Zoom and Teams. And what we've done, and we've just made sure that every day we take time to make sure we check in with everybody to make sure that they're okay and that nothing's developed overnight within their personal circumstances or within the work environment. Making sure that we do as many video calls with people as possible so people still get to see people. And then once a week, we have a proper good catch up where all the team come together on Teams for a well-being call where we don't talk about anything work related, and we talk about all sorts of different things. We do a bit of meditation. Some people in the team quite enjoy leading that, so people all take different roles. So it's just using different distraction techniques just to keep people engaged and not worrying about the news all the time and what's in front of us.
I mean, there has been a lot of distracting news, hasn't there? And obviously, as estate and letting agents, we've been open the whole time. Well, open, but sort of not allowing people into the office unless they have an appointment. Viewings have taken forever because of all the gaps between viewings. Obviously, we've had to go with all the PPE. We've had to make sure that not only applicants, but also, you know, vendors have been safe. So it's been a lot of extra time put into the daily routine, really.
Yeah, I mean, and you touched on some of the differences there, but our industry has obviously been subject to different pieces of legislation like the Coronavirus Act, which means that we haven't been able to do the job as we've always known how to do it. And we've had to adapt not only internally, but also explain that to clients and customers and third parties, because we're having to operate in a different framework of legislation during these times, which also some people have struggled with, because not only are they doing it remotely and not around their teams in the office, but they're having to, you know, really learn on the job as new pieces of legislation comes out. And normally it's very late on a Friday night that we get the updates.
Yes, but at least there is a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, clearly we're nearly at the end of January. The days are getting a little bit longer. I personally, once January is here, I sort of think, wow, it's a new year, and that sort of almost motivates me in itself. I don't want anybody to mention that Christmas word and how many days away we are, because I think all we want is a bit more of a normal year this year. But again, we don't know what that's going to look like. No. Do you think the same, or
yeah? Yes, I mean, I've just I think you just got to. It sounds very basic and very simplistic. You've got to try and take one day at a time. And I do see ourselves as fortunate that our industry has been able to remain open, and there a lot of our customers and clients and tenants and buyers, everybody, have needed support, and also some of them have definitely needed to move or wanted to move, and we obviously have been able to help facilitate that. So thankfully that's kept us distracted, but I haven't yet looked at my holiday calendar. No, I'm just I
think we've all worked out when the bank holidays are this year, but that's about as far as we're going, isn't it? Anyway, right. I'm quite interested in, I think I'm sitting here with a cup of tea, and I sort of thought, tea, now let's think about what we can talk about today. So I was going to suggest something like tea for tenancy. Do you think that would be a good topic?
Yes, yeah. I mean, because obviously, as I touched on, we are still preparing tenancies at the moment, so that would be a good topic to talk about. Obviously, there's a lot involved with setting up a tenancy, so I could, if you want, I could maybe talk about 5 steps to setting up a tenancy, and we could pick up. That sounds
just like my cup of tea, James.
So obviously, setting up a tenancy is always very involved, but there's another level of compliance and checks that need to be done, especially during the COVID situation. So step 1 in terms of setting up a tenancy would be that you'd need to ensure that the property has all the relevant safety certificates that are required, EPC, gas safety, electrical certificate, and that the property meets the HHSRS requirements. That's obviously to ensure that everything's prepped before you even start marketing. Step 2 would then be to plan the marketing strategy for the property and produce marketing material. And additionally, now we're obviously producing a virtual video so people can do virtual viewings due to COVID. And that is the advice from government, that everyone should initially view a property virtually via a video. So that's all part of the work that we need to do before we even speak to a potential applicant or buyer.
That makes sense, really, doesn't it? I mean, I think the photos, a floor plan and a video, they give a prospective tenant, a very good idea of what to expect. Have you had any good feedback about, how the videos help people make that decision before perhaps a wasted journey even for themselves?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think even coming, when we do come out of the situation we're in terms of the COVID restrictions, I do think specifically in the lettings area that it would be something that we would probably continue, because of the feedback that we've got, that it does enable people to have a bit more of an understanding. And I think there are different types of virtual videos as well. We've decided to have some more voiceover within it to give a bit more detail, rather than just a video going around the property. So that's helped people. And we deal with, obviously, people that are looking to share as well, and some of the people that are sharing properties haven't been able to get down to physically view it, but so they've been able to really rely on the video, while their friends have come and done a viewing after they've looked at the virtual viewing. So it's been a useful tool, that and people seem to like it, so we would continue that.
And I suppose the more all of us get used to using online platforms, so it becomes easier.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, step 3 then.
So step 3 would be, once we've got everything that we're happy with in terms of the standard of the property and all the marketing, is that we would then speak to potential tenants about the property, send them the virtual video, to discuss with them the affordability requirements of the property, and then obviously conduct the virtual viewing. And following them seeing the virtual viewing, if it's safe to do so, then book in an actual viewing at the property, following all the relevant COVID guidelines and using face masks and disposable gloves where necessary.
Do you think there'll ever come a time where people would rely entirely on a virtual viewing?
Possibly in some circumstances within the lettings area, possibly. I don't think that would be the case for sales, although we're not talking about that today. But I think for lettings, potentially. But I would always recommend that where possible, before someone financially commits to entering into, a legal contract, that they do see the property, or at least get someone who they trust that's connected to them to come and view it on their behalf to give them feedback. But there are circumstances where that may be possible. Yes, I think it is possible.
I mean, the whole point is when you go and view a property, you also want to see the surrounding area, don't you? And it's all very well seeing perhaps on a set of particulars that the nearest corner shop is 100 yards down the road, but you want to see the quality of the products in there. And, if it says, there's a park nearby, well, what sort of park is it? Is it a children's park? Is it a walking park? And, what other amenities are there? So really, I think from a tenant's perspective, they need to take the view that, well, yes, it looks okay, but if I'm going to make this place my home for a minimum of 6 months and maybe 3 years plus, I really want to be happy with the location and the property itself.
Yeah. And also, just to elaborate on that, specifically with furnished properties, it's quite difficult for the video to really demonstrate the actual condition of some of the furniture within the property. And every tenant and every applicant has a different standard of what they would find acceptable. So on furnished properties, it really is important that people understand that that's difficult to actually get across in a video.
Yeah, understand that. Okay, so what's your step 4?
Step 4 would be then negotiate any offers that come in following the viewings, conduct the ID and right to rent checks on the interested parties. At the moment, the right to rent checks are able to be done virtually via a video call, and then later on we're expected to do a follow-up in-person right to rent check. So that step 4 is about dealing with the compliance side of ID and right to rent checks. Step 5 would then be to start the referencing process via the independent referencing specialists to run through the prospective tenants' employment and affordability and previous landlord references. And in conjunction with that, we would start to draft the tenancy agreement. I
mean, already there's a lot there, isn't there, to do in those first 5 steps?
Absolutely.
It's not a 5-minute job by any means.
No, I mean, that's obviously just the first 5 steps, and there's obviously branches and spin-offs from those steps. I mean, on average, it takes about 17 hours to prepare a tenancy from start to finish. So at a later stage, we can have another catch up and we can talk through the other steps and how we then move from step 5 through to move in.
No, that's a great introduction for any landlords who perhaps are thinking about letting out a property and just wonder how the process starts. But absolutely. And obviously, a lot of the paperwork that's now being done digitally, so people don't have to come to the high street office, etc., safeguarding everybody, really. I mean, that's been a huge part of the work over the last 9 months, hasn't it?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, from the very first lockdown, I think businesses, and also specifically property businesses, have obviously had to adapt and fast forward some of their processes and what systems they use to digitalize and use electronic signatures to make the process to be completed from a more virtual perspective, and to keep everyone safe. And that has been an improvement, I think. And I think a lot of people would obviously continue with that going forward, that there'll be no going back to how it was done previously, because it wouldn't make sense to do so. So that's going to be a benefit. And everyone wants the process to be sped up as fast as possible. And that is one of the things that we can do.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you. That's a brilliant first 5 stars. I was only expecting to have a cup of tea with you, really, James. I don't know how we got onto this.
Well, when we get talking, we've got a lot to say.
Well, we have, but I think it just goes to prove, how much you have to know the processes and go through them step by step, because unless we know them thoroughly, how are the tenants going to understand it?
Absolutely.
And obviously, administration is a huge part of lettings and keeping audit trails, etc. So I don't know quite how that fits into the tea bit, but never mind. It doesn't really, I suppose, C for contract, C for coffee. Somebody would have rather had a cup of coffee today. But that's great catching up with you. Thank you very much. And I just hope, that not too many people are suffering from this Blue Monday. It seems quite tragic. I mean, I don't like the winter myself anyway. I always look forward to the spring, but we've had a lovely Sunday yesterday. There was frost when I walked into work this morning. So, we just got to keep
as supporters if we can. Yeah.
We're all becoming mighty Zoomers, aren't we, at the moment? So, so thanks for that, James. Lovely to catch up with you.
Brilliant. Nice catching up. Brilliant.
All right. Thanks then.